Good morning. I'm Lori from All About Color Quilting. We do all K-facet fabrics in quilts and patterns and books and did I mention quilt kits? Today I'm talking about a particular quilt kit. You can see the blocks on the wall behind me. It's called Arboretum, and it is the original quilt is by Springleaf Studios. That is her original quilt. The pattern is an amalgam of patterns, and it can be found on the springleafstudios.com website. Click over on the right under November of 2019 and scroll down to November 6th, and Anne describes her process of making this quilt. We loved it so much, I did, I wanted to make it in all K-facet. So I created a kit, and I have cut the pieces in the kit. There are 99 pieces. You actually only need 94 and then 5 of the shark's teeth fabric. But I put in 99 because you just never know. Sometimes you aren't happy with one and you want to throw it out. So you have 5 extras. And then you have all of the Aboriginal dots that I've been using for my stems and branches. You have your binding, and there's your shark's teeth fabric like the one she used in her quilt. So we have that kit for sale for $89.95. Includes all the fabrics you need for the quilt top and binding. It makes a 60 by 72 inch quilt. So it's a good size throw. Very well priced. The pieces are cut to size, and I'm going to show you how I did them because I add a few more techniques along the way for sewing it together. I'm sort of a process gal, and the pieces are all cut to the size that you need to start with that she prescribes on the Springleaf Studios website, blog actually. So they're cut and they're ready to go. I like to layer 2 of them and do 2 at a time. It helps me rearrange the pieces once I get the strips sewn in. And I like to rearrange the motif back into the piece. I don't like half my flower over here and half my flower over there. I use 2 rulers. I use a 6 by 12 and I use a 6 by 6, and I'll show you why I use 2 different rulers. And 2 pair of glasses because, well, I'm at that age. I can't walk around with a bifocal, I fall over. First I make a 3 1/4 inch cut, separate my stack of 2, and then I take my 6 inch ruler and I cut my improvisationally, I cut my branch spots, and I've kind of developed after 70 blocks a style that I like. She sometimes makes one with 1 and sometimes makes it with as many as 5. I found 5 way too confusing and 1 was too plain. So now I've made my cuts. I separate my pieces. I'm going to lay one off to the side over here, and I'm just going to work on this small mat so that I can hold it up and show you when I need to. Keep them in order. Now I'm going to choose so now I have my cuts, and I'm going to choose my stems and branches color. I have cut all of the Aboriginal dots into strips, and I hang them all on a 1 inch. They're actually curtain hangers. I used to get them from the dry cleaners, but who dry cleans anything anymore? And now I found you can just order them on Amazon, which is lovely. What can't you order on Amazon? And then I have all of my cut pieces in a little box so that I can pick 2 that I want to do next. And then I have a little stash of cut pieces over here that are partial, so I keep using them. Now, what am I going to do for color on this one? Do I like purple? Do I like charcoal? No. Do I like ocean? Somewhat. Do I like orange? Well, orange really stands out. Purple blends in a little more. So I do some that stand out and some that blend in. I think on this one, because there's a lot of orange in the pieces, actually rust, I think I will do the orange. And I just lay it down. I give myself about 1/4 of an inch on either side, and with a small rotary cutter, I follow the line so that I get the right angle. And I do that with all of them. You have to change this one over here. That one needs to be ironed before I can cut it successfully. Oh, look, this one already has a pretty good angle. So I'll cut the other side, and then I'll cut the side for the 3rd branch over here, giving myself an extra 1/4 of an inch. That way I don't have to worry at this stage. Then I fold them over and I pin. I pin everything. I love to pin. I love things to turn out perfectly, and you can't really get that without pinning. So then I pin these together just like that. I place the pins about 3/4 of an inch from the raw edge. That way I can leave the pins in and blow right by them on the sewing machine, which I like to sew fast too. So then I have sewn an earlier group, and I chain piece them. I use leaders and enders. So this is my ender from the last project, my leader on this one. I sew them together, clip them apart, and at this stage we have something else to do. Once I clip them apart, put my leader ender back there, pull out the pins 2 at a time, bam bam. The next step that I like to do, and I use some of this fingertip moistener. You can get it at the office supply store. It's designed for counting money, but I use it in sewing. Then I finger press. Well, actually they're very small pieces, so I lay it down flat and use my thumbnail to finger press them open. And I'll show you why I do that, because I need to make a cut on it now, and that's where my 6.5 inch ruler comes in again. I need to cut that branch straight up even with my background. And I need to do that on both sides, because remember I gave it an extra 1/4 of an inch. Makes it just so much easier to sew. Cut, cut. I don't recommend cutting toward yourself, but my arms are really long, and I sit up high in my chair and I'm able to do it. You might want to turn your pieces around like this so that you're always cutting away from you and off to the left, or off to the yonder, like so. So now I have my cut pieces, and I can, now this is why I do 2 at a time. I need to line this back up and see where my motif goes and where my pieces go, because at this stage there's about 6 different ways to put it together and get your same tree. And I've discovered that 2 at a time I can look over at one and see how it's supposed to go together. Now I have to line these 2 up with an exact 1/4 inch seam right at the edge. If it isn't exactly perfect, it's okay. We're going to trim them eventually anyway. There's a fair amount of trimming in this. So I've lined it up so there's a 1/4 of an inch, the seam right there, and it's a 1/4 of an inch over here. You want to see that that crosses where you're going to sew. And again, I've placed my pin about 3/4 of an inch from the raw edge so I can sew right by them. One of these has 2, so I have to go through and take it out and sew the other side. Just have to remember to do that, but then I don't have to come back to my cutting board again. I can just stay over at the sewing machine, which is of course right there. I like a table that's L-shaped so that I have a sewing surface and a cutting surface. And to me that just makes sense. I know most sewing tables are, you either sit and sew or you have a cutting table that is separate. Okay, I'm ready to stitch these up, chain piece them, and I would normally have 2 sets of them, so I would go to the sewing machine, stitch them up, and I would come out with pieces that look like this. And again, I finger press all the seam allowances open. This is where I will take it to the ironing board, and I will iron them flat, bring them back, line them up. So once I've ironed it, I line them back up to make sure that my motif matches and the flower matches. Then I'll put a pin on one side. The pin head is pointing up and bottom is pointing down. That's how I know, because you can orient it this way too, and all of a sudden your flowers don't match. So, but I'm going to sew an orange piece onto one side. What do I do with those babies? Well, here's an orange piece. No, it's a red piece. Here's an orange piece in between the yellows. And once again, I very simply give myself an extra 1/8 of an inch maybe on the straight piece. And then I pin it to the side with 2. And again, I use the same pinning technique. 3/4 of an inch from the edge and parallel to that edge. Sew it on here, finger press it open, sew it onto this side, finger press it open again, and I have my block. Some blocks I love, some blocks I'm not sure will wind up in the final composition, but they're all fun to do. I like some to contrast and some to blend, and I'm 70 blocks in. It's fun to sit down and do a couple of blocks in a 15-20 minutes. It's relaxing. It's enjoyable to work with these fabrics, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. So if you think you'd like to make Springleaf Studios Arboretum out of K-Facet like we did, you can order a kit. You'll get a tip sheet with some of my sewing techniques on it. It gives you the directions to Springleaf Studios, and you can find us at allaboutcolorquilting.com. We're all K-Facet. Thanks for joining me today.